Hey, everybody, and welcome to another fabulous episode of the Suzette Speak Show. We're talking real estate today, y'all. And if you've never purchased a home, man, these home prices are literally kind of through the roof, and there are people that are super discouraged. I am here with a real estate professional tonight to give us a real estate update. If you're like me, you're looking around and housing prices, they keep saying they're going to go down, but instead they just keep going up and up. And I wonder how people are able to buy homes. If you've never purchased a home, especially here tonight, we are going to talk about new homeowner programs. Now, if you are in the market, especially here in South Florida, you guys know I'm based in Miami. I have a recommendation for you, and she'll kind of tell you more about her experience. And she has been in the real estate industry for quite some time. I'm going to ask her to kind of give us some pointers. If you've purchased property, hey, go ahead and leave your comments in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking about interest rates or first-time home buyer incentives. I know it can be very daunting. The process can be very complicated, but we're going to break it down tonight. So if you were new to the real estate market, I want to welcome you. And if you're not, I want you to be a part of tonight's conversation. This is the Suzette Speak Show. I welcome each and every one of you. If you're watching on Facebook, you know what to do. Hit the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, that's where my people are. Come on over and pull up a chair. We have a wonderful young woman. She is a graduate of the University of Miami in the building, who has built a fabulous career here in South Florida, servicing clients and building up her portfolio. So I want to see what she has to say. And is there any encouraging news for people who want to get into real estate? Is it a good time? Is it a bad time? Well, only you know that. You know your pocket. But I want to ask the question, do you feel, if you wanted to purchase your own home, that you could afford to buy a house? Well, I know I've been talking to my friends, talking to people in my circle, even my clients, and I know it has become somewhat out of reach for some. They are feeling a little bit intimidated by the current housing market. Of course, in Florida, guess what? Everybody wants to move here. Could y'all stop, please? We are full. I keep telling people Miami is full, right? Very crowded, but people still want to come here. And therefore, with money from out of state, our market has become so competitive, such that I don't think houses even stay on the market for that long. And it's a seller's market, meaning there's tons of buyers for every house that's on the market. And if you don't move quick, or if you don't move with cash, you can lose a deal. There's so much going on, and we're going to ask her to break it all the way down. Please hit the like button as you come in. Say hello in the chat. Let me know you're watching. I'm grateful that you're here. How are you, Damon? I'm glad you're here, Mandrell. Let me say, I got to say 5 hellos real quick before I want to start. But thank you, RM. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. She's a fantastic moderator. She also has her own channel here talking about nostalgic femininity and beauty. I appreciate you always helping out when you can. Man, Jarrell21 is in the building. He's also a fabulous YouTuber over there on the Black Man Unfiltered channel. Man, Drill and Shushu doing work all the time over there. I'm grateful you're here, brother. Good to see you. Sandy V. Law, one of my sisters-in-law here in Miami. Girl, I miss Jazz in the Gardens, girl. I'm going to call you and we can catch up on what your favorite part was. And if you're watching Team Replay, go ahead and hit the like button or leave a comment. We will most certainly go back and watch this stream and answer any questions that you have. But again, my guest is here. All of her information is in the video description. You can check her out. She has, again, her own kind of like real estate practice, and she is trying to educate. That's our purpose here tonight. Again, you have to seek out a professional that works for you. So she's going to open up kind of the conversation tonight with where we are currently. So welcome again. Hit the like button. And Damon says, 7 B says, I want to buy first time, but not sure if it's the right time. Listen, I've been double dutching too, hon. I'm looking around, want to make an investment. Is it worth making an investment? Yeah, everybody looking for a townhouse or a duplex or something going on. I feel you, sis. There's so much in and out of the market that I can do. And I think, did I miss my chance and that kind of thing. Some buyer's remorse and remorse in general. I hear you. Nice to have you, Damon. It's mostly rich people who are buying homes right now at Suzette. But he say, step to the back, sis. Get your money up and let's go. It is. And then there's people that are buying and holding, using them as Airbnbs, rentals. That's a whole another animal, but we'll get there. Les Sandy B saying go Canes. All right, the you in the building. All right, settle down, settle down. All right, Miami in the building. But without further ado, you see her here. I am really grateful that she's made time for us tonight. Again, she comes with lots of experience. Y'all, welcome, welcome for the first time on the Suzette Speaks Show. None other than Miss Marly Walters. Big up yourself, sis. Hey. Oh, wait, let me get her in. Hey, how are you?
Hi, how are you? How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, you look
Okay,
great.
great.
Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much.
you.
We're matching with our little hair. I be matching with a lot of my guests, actually.
It
But how
is
you feeling tonight?
definitely protective style season. So
Protective Styles is the name. We growing it out, sis. We growing
I
it out.
know, I know.
But loving the look, the hair, the vibe. Appreciate you coming on. Hit the like button, y'all. Make her feel welcome. Marly Walters in the building. I want to first let you just introduce yourself and tell the folks who you are and what you do.
Well, thanks for having me on, Suzette. I really appreciate it. My name is Marly Walters. I'm a realtor here in South Florida. I've been a realtor on the sales side, on the buy side, on the investment side, on the coaching side, having a team for the last about 8 years. So I graduated from the University of Miami with a degree in international finance and marketing, worked in corporate sales and corporate logistics for about 8 years before I went into the real estate business. It's been definitely a long journey, but I love it. And, I have a passion for helping people on their buying and selling journey.
I love it. We're in the right space with the right lady, y'all. I appreciate you all here watching live. You can follow her. You see it all at Marly Real Estate all over. Okay, get her on Instagram. And of course, her website is there so you guys can check her out. So we're going to see. Listen, the comments are already popping already. Already.
Good.
They ain't even waste no time about how you really feel about the real estate market. But yeah, hey,
Awesome.
Lando, how are you? I see so many comments. I'm just gonna go back and read a few. Y'all know I love my speakers, and those are the people who are sub to my channel, my subscribers. Mangel says I can afford it, but there's no way I buy a house right now, not with these
Mm-hmm.
interest rates. Now, interest rates have gone up considerably. We're going to talk about how that impacts the cost of a home just momentarily. Thank you. Definitely hearing how you feel there, Miss. Oh, hear me, Miss. I'm hearing Marly and
Mister.
Midrell, Mister Midrell. Jay Shabazz in the building. Thank you. Hit the like button, y'all. Jay Shabazz is saying a house is not an investment. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
The bank don't make money, so they sold us a dream, a house. And I'm hearing a little background noise, honey. I'm gonna mute you real quick and then unmute yourself. All right. I don't know what's rubbing. Something might be rubbing on your hair, or maybe something like I don't know. I can hear something in the mic, but unmute yourself when you're ready. Jay Shabazz says a house is not an investment. Uh-oh. The bank don't make money, so they sold us this dream. A house is an investment. Rich dad, poor dad. He said, get your mind right. What are we talking about tonight? Listen, I think we might disagree. Not sure if everyone feels the same way, Jason Vaz, but thank you. Hey, Doug. Doug is in the building. Thank you. One of my fantastic supporters and moderators. Grateful that you're here. Tonight's topic, should you buy a house? Can you afford to buy a house? Is it your first time? We're going to talk about some wonderful incentives and programs that might be able to help you buy a house, right? Let me see. And Sandy B says interest rates are one thing. Inflated sales prices. Come on, Miami. Come on, Miami is a whole nother ball game. So yeah, they're tossing a lot out there. So let's where do we begin, Marly? So first and foremost, who do you usually help? Do you help? You say you do both buyers and sellers. Are you working a lot with first time home buyers?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely built my business on working with first time home buyers. That's mainly my bread and butter. Probably in the last 2 years, it's moved to first time home sellers because naturally your first time home buyers are going to want to sell when the market's hot. And so that's about 50-50 my business right now. And the agents that I have working with me as well focus a lot on first time home buyers. That's kind of where our lead generation is. But yeah, it is because I work with a lot of either young professionals or young families, and it tends to be like their first big purchase. So yeah, I work with both, but typically it's first-time home buyers.
So out across the market, we
Mm-hmm.
are seeing a lot of changes. So since you've been in the game, about 8 years, you say, what have you seen changed here in South Florida?
I mean, gosh, everything really. When I first got into the market, well, I'll get a little background. I got my license when I first graduated college, and I'm going to age myself in 2007. And of course, everybody knows what happened in 2007, 2008. Market crashed. I said, real estate, no, thank you. I need a stable job. So I went into corporate. And so from there, actually, the investment market has just gone up and up and up every single year. Of course, the last 2 years has just been an anomaly, really, in the market. Typically, home prices are going to go up anywhere from 3 to 7% every single year. And the last 2 years, we saw 25, 30, 35, 40% in some, South Florida markets of increased pricing and equity year after year. So if you bought in 2020, right at the beginning, your home could have easily doubled in price, within the last 2 years, which isn't typical. So
Which is
what you would,
crazy. Hello, let's just
yeah,
call it what it is, because a lot of
it's
people are like, "This is a bubble. This is crazy."
well, look, nobody has a magic 8 ball about the real estate market. Nobody could have predicted what happened in 2020. I do say, I was telling my clients in the middle of the pandemic of 2020, and even towards the end of the year, when we're still like holding off, I said, no, this is time to buy, because now it's going to be a bottleneck, right? So a lot of things have created this market. It wasn't just 2020. The last 10 years prior, between 2010 and 2020, we had about a negative 7 million homes compared to the amount of buyers that we had in the market. It was a reaction to the previous 10 years of now new builders not wanting to build, right? So we already had a bottleneck of home buyers wanting to come to the market. We were already behind in that. And 2020 and 2021 just added to that bottleneck.
So
So it
there's
was, yeah,
I'm just gonna stop you there because I think a lot of people are wondering how the heck did it all happen. She's laying it out there, y'all. Why prices have skyrocketed in
right.
Miami? I mean, they're pricing people out, working class people out,
Yeah.
left and right, and I mean like firemen. I'm talking about like
Yeah.
police officers. I'm not talking
Nationwide,
about.
though, it's not just a South Florida issue. It's a nationwide issue in terms of a home affordability just really being, setting a new standard for home affordability for especially for working class families, and now having to have two incomes to be able to afford it. It's really changed in the last 3 years. Especially, but Florida has especially been hit because we are such a big relocation state, and because we were one of the states that stayed open during COVID and things like that. So we had a really big influx. We were the number one state for net relocation and net migration in that sense. And we've also always been a hub for out of state buyers and out of the country international buyers, especially the South Florida Miami market. So we had a very concoction of the perfect storm in terms of the previous 10-year buildup, the COVID buildup, plus us just being a market that sees a lot of new buyers in any given market in any given year.
So there's a confluence of issues going on, and I'm glad you pointed out why
Mm-hmm.
there are more buyers basically than or desired buyers than
Right.
there are homes available.
Correct.
So we saw a slowdown in homes being built. Let's talk about that, COVID, and then
Mm-hmm.
of course the supply chain issues. There
Yep.
were not enough materials to actually
Right.
complete these homes, even the ones that could have been built. But we saw
Exactly.
it was just almost like a standstill when it came to the real estate market in terms of housing projects and development. So
Right.
you had 2 years, no homes really were built.
Mm-hmm.
You have people
Very
moving
little.
all around the country, leaving certain states, going to other states. I don't know why y'all like Florida so much, but the
There's so
sunshine,
many great things about Florida. What
we've
do you
done too much
mean?
marketing. We've done a good, too much of a good job of marketing.
Uh,
Everybody's coming, and again, they get a rude awakening when they step out of that plane or that bus, and it's like, oh, rent is how much? Like, yeah,
I
it's
know.
really expensive. So
Yeah,
it's
rent.
not.
People don't talk about the rent that's also been increasing,
Yes.
especially because we're when we have such a high tourism city like we do, and where hospitality is one of the main sources of income and one of the main industries in any
Yeah.
given city, you're
Yeah.
going to have a high rental population. And so that actually was felt probably the worst. I typically don't do that many rentals, only if it's a referral or a previous client or something like that. Um, and when the market kind of halted, I had a couple clients be like, "Hey, I need to get in a rental fast." And I was like, "All right, fine, I'll take it." And I never had an issue putting people in rents. And when I tell you, like, we were at like a 97, 99% occupancy rate, which is not heard of.
For
Usually
rentals.
for
Wow.
rent, we're talking about, rents going up 50 to 100% in one year. And people who rent typically don't have, are doing it because they don't have that budget, and don't have the margin, I should say, to be able to purchase, or the savings to be able to purchase. So it was a big hit. That was probably the hardest, I think, hit. I think if you're a first time home buyer, and you're renting, now you don't have the capability to save because now you're just spending double on rent. So
Yeah.
that was definitely a hard thing, I think, to see. But yeah, we're just such a big relocation state, and because rent was still kind of affordable when we had the relocation kind of migration merge, it was coming from a lot of states that had higher rental prices, and so it kind of
Yeah.
just really that was probably the worst, honestly.
Yeah, so I'm glad to know it's not just South Florida, even though it feels like
Yeah.
we are probably leading the nation when it comes to increase in housing costs. Are you feeling
Yeah.
this increase? Y'all leave me a comment. Please leave us a comment
Mhm.
in the comment section. Team Replay, welcome. Hit the like button as you come in. Says Reese, the Red Dragon. Glad to have you, brother from Philly, the world class. How are you? Nice to see you too, brother. Thank you again. He gave me a good recipe for falafel. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We'll get a couple comments here. Damon Blissett says, I'm in Kansas City now for 10 years. I have seen apartment complexes being built at a higher rate than single family homes. Now, I can imagine that's interesting for Kansas City. You guys must have a lot of space because here they just knock down old places and build back brand new ones that cost more. I mean, I don't know. You said 98% rental occupancy filled already.
Yeah.
So
Typically it's in the low 90s, and then you have about anywhere from a 5 to 10% turnover rate. It just wasn't happening. Like, people weren't leaving, people weren't moving, new people were coming in, feeling that you were on a 2 or 3 month wait list to get into any kind of rental community, like a direct rental community. And a lot of people just had to resign at the higher rates because there was nothing else.
there was nowhere to go.
Everything, there was nowhere to go, like,
I
unless
know
you were
the feeling.
leaving.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, there was nowhere to go, and so that was really tough. But yeah, and the other part of that is that affected the amount of sellers that wanted to sell, right? If you can't go anywhere, if you now have to purchase at the high rate, like, you're never really going to be able to perfectly time the market, or it's going to be
Yeah,
very difficult, I should say. There are some people who do it where you're going to be able to buy low and sell high, right? The reason you're going to be able to sell high in any market is because people are purchasing high.
right.
So if you're either making a lateral move, or you were making a downsizing move, or you had enough equity in order to cash out and pay for something cash, that's one thing. But a lot of people just weren't in that space.
Yeah, the people didn't have income, like they were relying on the
Mm-hmm.
government during COVID and et cetera, et cetera. And then when your rent went up, the extra money that you did get from the COVID relief went to the
Right.
landlord. I'm like, what are we
Way to
doing
go to
here,
you.
guys? Ended up in
I
a
know.
crazy spiral. Yeah, a lot going on. Talking to Marly Walters, realtor here in Miami, giving us the lowdown as to why Sandy B. Law says Florida is full. Y'all, no, just kidding. We are very,
Florida
you
is
know, conscious about that, especially in Miami and
yeah.
Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach, Southeast Florida. We call it South Florida if you live here. But
Right.
yeah, it always feels like rent is always increasing every time I resign. Oh my goodness, it's like over and over, and you wonder how people with families and other kind of fixed obligations are surviving here, and the people that live in groups and live together. It is. There's a reason why because we see multiple family units and literally multiple families in these family units just so that people can survive. Hey L. Dot. Oh, how are you? Glad you made it here, sis. I'm glad you're watching. We're here with some real information. Great question. We're gonna go right into it. Okay, see, I have a very astute audience. Lil Ernest says, are there first time home buyer programs in South Florida for people getting their first mortgage? So let's just get right into it, Marly. What are you seeing and what can you recommend our viewers kind of look at or ask about if
Yeah.
they are looking to buy their first home?
Well, I would start. Let's kind of start in the beginning in terms of like the buying process. I always kind
Yeah.
of
And actually,
start.
let's start even further back. As a
Yeah.
realtor, what do
Right.
you do in the
Yeah,
process?
so yeah, as that's a good question. As a realtor, you're as in the home buying process, you're going to have basically three main people that are going to help you through a transaction. You're going to have your realtor, your real estate agent, you're going to have your lender, and you're going to have your title agency, or your title attorney, depending what state you're in. So as a realtor, we are going to help you migrate the transaction everything from helping you find the proper lender to helping you find the proper financing, or like I said, those down payment assistance programs if you need the funds. Not only just help you with the search, the role of the real estate agent has actually changed in the last 10 to 20 years with the internet, right? Before we were kind of the gatekeepers of the information, the gatekeepers of the searches. And now everybody that I pretty much find houses for have found it before I have. So it's only about 10 to 15% of the market that you're going to buy something off market, right? Typically, you're going to go on Zillow or Redfin or one of these big real estate hubs, and you're going to find the information. All that information is supplied by realtors. By the way, just so you guys know, we do have firsthand information on that. But you're going to go, it's hard to go to like 10 different realtor websites. You're going to want to go where everything is kind of, put together for you like a Zillow. So, but we also do help you find a house. We're going to make sure that we help you find a house that you're going to qualify properly for, and then once you get a house that you like, we're going to set up the searches for you. Of course, we're going to, time out the searches in terms of viewing the properties, and setting up tours and scheduling, things like that. And then once you find a house, we're responsible for the negotiation. As realtors, we have a financial fiduciary responsibility to you, whether that's we're helping you buy a house or sell a house. And so depending on how that realtor is representing you in that transaction, that fiduciary responsibility might change, right? If I'm representing the buyer, I'm responsible to make sure that I get the best deal for my buyer. If I'm representing the seller, I make sure that I am getting the best deal for my seller. And just a little as a side note, in the state of Florida, we actually can represent both sides. We just have to disclose and let you guys know, like, hey, I'm not going to like share what your lowest or highest number is, but I want to make sure that you guys know that I want to come to a term that you might have to give on both, right? So in terms of negotiation, we help you in terms of the actual finance and purchasing negotiation, and also in terms of the terms, right? All deals aren't just about the price. The terms actually really will make or break a deal as well in terms of inspection period or how much money you put down. So we help you navigate kind of that whole inspection or that whole process in terms of the negotiation process, as well as being under contract, all the paperwork that comes with it, making sure that you're responsible for reading and knowing what you're signing at the end of the day, but we want to make sure that you're informed that you know what you're actually reading. So we're not attorneys, we can't represent you in that sense, but we do have a responsibility to make sure that you know what you're signing. And so just making sure you navigate that properly. And then everything in between in terms of from contract to close. So whether that's setting up the inspections and recommending people that you should work with, making sure that the property stays in the condition, that you saw it in the first time, negotiating any kind of repairs that might need to be done to the property during the contract time. And then of course, closing and making sure that we partner with the different various people in the transaction, whether that's the lender, the title company, or let's say I'm representing a buyer, the listing agent on the other side, to make sure that all parties, the transaction, are on the same page the whole time. So, a lot of people just think you like show a house and you get a check at closing, but there's so much more involved.
Not a good realtor. Good going to bat for you. And I know several, Marly being one of them.
Yeah.
I have friends who are realtors that go to bat. They do the research. They're up all night. They're reviewing the contract for you. They're really looking, there can't be an attorney, but they're looking for defects and things like that. Not every realtor is built the same now. Let's be real.
They're not, and
some are sitting there collecting
that is true. That is true.
But that's not the role. Lazy, man. Yeah. Very lazy. So
we've gotten a bad rap because the entry level or the entry to become a realtor, the bar is pretty low. Okay, and the
course, pass a test.
Exactly. You take a week course. Basically, it's a 63-hour, I think, at this point.
I think I sat for that course one time, actually. I was just curious.
Yeah. So you could take the course in a week or maybe 2 weeks, depending on how fast you take the lesson or the class. And you take a state exam. The state exam isn't, the easiest, I guess you can say, to pass, especially if you're not a test taker. But, and then you pay your fee and you're off to the races. Within 30 days, you can be literally handling the largest transaction of somebody in their lifetime. And so it's a big responsibility. I don't take it lightly. You should make sure that you interview probably a couple before you start, working with somebody, or that they come highly recommended as a referral, so that you know exactly how they are going to walk through the process.
I totally agree. L.O. had a quick question. Thank you, sis. You broke it down very well as far as what a realtor is supposed to do. And she asks, can you speak of how to find one? Well, I think she just answered you, sis, to make sure you actually maybe get a reference.
Yeah,
Maybe.
get a reference. I always start with referrals. If you know somebody who's just bought or sold a house and that's what you're looking to do, ask them like, hey, how did the process go? Look, nobody's perfect. Things are going to happen in every
Right.
transaction, but were they professional? Did they negotiate a good deal for you? Did they keep everything? Did they keep you abreast of all the information that was happening? Did you feel like they were a teacher during, the conversation, during the process? Have a conversation with them. Um, at times sometimes you're going to have to sign what's called like a buyer's representative, just like you would sign a listing agreement, and that's to protect you and protect them. The last thing I would want is for somebody to like, I show 10 homes and then they just go with their cousin. You know what I mean?
No, no,
So
no. And we got to protect
there's
you
some
too
skin
in
in
your
the
time.
game.
Like,
There's
oh
some
no,
skin
we
in the
be
game in
scamming
that
though. They
sense.
be scamming.
Yeah, there's some skin in the
We
game in
do
that
all the
sense.
work. Just kidding. I don't need a realtor. Like what?
Right.
Like no.
Yeah,
Don't
but
confuse me, but
interview them. Make sure that this is somebody who you feel is capable of the job. Look at reviews online. Look to see if they're social, their website. How present are they? How many sales have they done? All those things I think are good ways to look.
I love it. Great advice here. We're sitting down with Miss Marly Walters. She's a realtor here in South Florida, giving us a real estate update. Y'all, please follow her at Marly Real Estate. You can find her on Instagram. You can find her on Facebook. She has some great experience and knows the market. So if you're looking for someone experienced, please go check her out at themarlygroup.com. We got more questions. I'm gonna roll back to the process, but let's answer a few questions. Damon just commented, Kansas City Metro is spread out around here. There's a lot of farmland being bought and developed. Okay, yeah. So y'all got space here. We have a urban borderline that's not supposed to take us over to the Everglades, but every minute the Miami-Dade County board is trying to vote to expand it, and I think they just did approve. I think it was like an
Getting
Amazon
further south and west.
huge Amazon processing plant or whatever location, like now directly in the Everglades. Welcome to the alligators. I can't stand every time we have this urban border and we're protecting wildlife, off my soapbox, but we keep moving that because we need space. We have run out of space and people need to go back towards the beach, which they are, but then there's regentrification happening of Black neighborhoods that have gone back.
That's a different
I want to get so
story.
deep. Okay. Sandy says,
I don't know if you want to hear my hot take on that, but
okay, we're going to go back to that because Miami has some beautiful areas. North Miami Beach, what was called Little Haiti or now Wynwood, and these places that were historically Black. Coconut Grove, right? And all of a sudden we run out of space. We're coming back for your property.
I know.
This chunk area in Fort Lauderdale. I can name them going up to Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie, and Fort Pierce, right? It is quite discouraging to see what's happening. And again, it's pricing out original owners, original families, and the working class oftentimes from areas of town that they once occupied. So Sandy B says, any information Marly can share about down payment assistance through programs like NACA, Bank of America, etc. All right. So let me have her explain some of the process first, and then we'll get into the program. So you were going to talk about how the home buying process. Now, this is much more complicated, y'all. She's just giving you an overview.
Right.
But if you give us a kind of overview, breakdown as to where you start and how the process usually goes.
Yeah, the two places I usually start are step one is assessment and step two is affordability. So any single time somebody's thinking about buying a house, we're going to stay with home buying. You want to assess your situation, right? Like what kind of lifestyle do you have? Do you travel all the time? Do you move a lot for work every 2 years? Are you going to live in that city for more than 3 years? Do you want a low maintenance lifestyle versus a kind of higher maintenance lifestyle? That's going to determine the kind of property that you're going to start looking for. And even if you should purchase or not, I don't make anyone feel bad about renting. At the end of the day, renting is for some people. And for most people at one part of your life, some people want to be renters forever because they never want to have to like deal with maintenance, so it's a lifestyle choice, one. But home ownership, I do say at one point in your life, you should probably try to experience. It's one of the biggest ways to build wealth. And it's also one of the biggest ways to build community. And so if that's something that you're interested in, building wealth and building community and having that kind of stable neighborhood, then that is what home ownership is about. So assess your situation to make sure that this is going to be right for you at this point in your life or at any point in your life in that sense. The next biggest step for sure is affordability. A lot of things go into affordability, but I tend to start with, I would love to tell people, hey, make sure that when you buy a house that you have no debt, that, you're making sure that if you're going to if you can pay cash, pay cash. If you can't pay cash, get a loan that's, going can have a low interest rate, get a loan that where your payment is, a third of your take home pay. I wish I could like stay in this bubble. I understand that's not for everybody. But I would say that you don't want the house to have you. You want to own the house. Okay.
Right.
And you want to make sure that you don't go into a situation in which you're going to be house rich and life poor. And so you don't
Struggling.
have to own a house to live a good
No.
life or to
Mm-hmm.
be a good citizen or anything like that. You want to make sure that you can still live your life well and still be able to partake in the things that make you happy, and that you're not pouring everything into this one asset. So that kind of goes into the assessment part. But in terms of affordability, a lot of things you have to think about is your debt and your income, the type of income, and the type of property. It's kind of where I start. So A is your debt as low as possible, because debt is going to, when lenders they qualify you on what's called your debt to income ratio, right? So they want to make sure typically that you're not spending more than 40 to 45% of your total mortgage payment on this house. Okay. When I say mortgage payment, it's called, I don't want to get too technical, but it's called PITI. All right. Your actual principal of the loan, your interest that you're going to pay. So those things typically are going to be fixed. And then your taxes and your insurance. And then an H if you have like an HOA or condo association. Okay. That's going to make up that main part of your monthly payment amount. And so your monthly budget about or debt amounts. They're going to take that 40-45% and they're going to make sure that all your other debts, right, aren't going to exceed that. So if you have a car payment that's $500 and you have a student loan that's $400, they're going to take that 45%. They're going to start deducting what you can afford for your house, right? So you might think you can afford a $2,000 payment every single month, but they might say actually it's only $1,200 because you have a car and this student loan. And so that's really going to factor affordability. And so that's why I tell people, hey, if you can get rid of as much debt as possible, a consumer debt, that's really going to put you in a better position to be able to afford and buy the house that you want, and to afford it comfortably, right? So always, if whatever possible, buy the car after the house. Okay, that's the number one thing that's really going to throw off your affordability and your debt to income ratio. And then as soon as you can pay off, if you have student loans, your student loans. I see people all the time, that have $100,000 in student loans, and lenders are gonna, if you're not making a payment, so if you have $100,000 student loans, you're probably making a $12 or $15 payment. If you're not making that payment, they have to still calculate part of that payment as if you were making a payment, because eventually you're going to pay it. Mm-hmm. So that can really skew the numbers, right? So everything's individualized, but just keep that in mind in terms of affordability. You don't want the house to have you. You want to have the house. Okay. You want to own the house. Lenders are also, they're going to base that affordability on your gross income and not typically your net income, which I think is always like a little tricky for me, because I'm always like, that's great that I'm getting this on paper, but how much am I taking home? When you do your numbers, make sure that 30%, whatever it is, it's of your net income. That's going to put you in the best position to buy a house. They are only looking at what they can legally lend you. Okay. They're not really looking at what you can actually afford.
Right.
And so just have that discussion with your agent. I have clients all the time that, get $500,000 approvals with their lender. And that's going to look like a, $4,000 payment. And they're like, whoa, I only want to stay at $2,500. I was like, well,
no,
$2,500
but then
payment,
all that money, yes.
you're looking at a house at $300. Oh, but I can't find anything at $300. I said, well, maybe you're not ready to buy a house. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. Yeah. But a lot of people don't want to hear that. Lenders are always going to try to push you like to the limit, because that's what they're going to do. Not always, but that's their job to say, hey, this is what we think you can afford. They have different, calculations, but just make sure you have an honest conversation about that number for yourself, and don't go over it just because you want to, have a bigger house. That every single house, especially your first time house, your first house is not going to be your forever home.
Yeah.
I always tell you, you're going to have to compromise on something. I understand it. You want to make sure you're safe, that it takes care of your basic needs, right? Like it has a number of bedrooms that you need. But maybe you go with a 2.5 instead of a 3-bedroom. I mean, a 3-bathroom. You know what I mean? Like maybe it doesn't have as big of a yard and it just has a little patio. Maybe it's 1 story, not 2 stories. Maybe it has a kitchen that you're going to put $2,000 and it's not brand new. You're going to have to kind of give up a little, especially on the first time home buyer purchase, and just have that conversation with your agent about what are must-haves and what are wants. And at least then you can kind of prioritize especially if you have a tighter budget.
It's great information. I think sometimes we are not as realistic, guys, as we
Yeah.
should be. We're looking left, looking right, keeping up with the Joneses, all that good stuff. That can get you in a lot of trouble.
Okay.
For those of us who remember the housing crash of what Marley just described,
Yeah.
2000, what, 6, 7, 8, 9
Mm-hmm.
ish, 10 ish, and how it was so devastating to so many. Foreclosures were up and
Right.
crazy. You know, I
And that's
used
because
to
lenders were putting people in houses if they couldn't
could not
afford, right?
afford
Like
exactly.
no income loans,
Yeah, oh, and nobody
no
checked
down
anything. That was
payment.
Wild Wild West days. Not anymore.
Yeah. No,
Now
there's a
it's
lot of
over
things.
scrutinized.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in place right now that in terms of that level is not going to happen.
Yeah,
But there's still ways around it, and there still have a lot higher of a threshold than I think people can afford still. I mean,
yeah.
if 50% of your income is going, because like I said, they're doing it 40 or 50, 45% of your gross income, which could
Mm,
be 50, 55% of your net income,
right,
right? So
right.
if 50% of your net income every single month is going to your house payment, like what do you save? That's,
It's like
taxes and
the whole,
personal insurance, savings, retirement, like none of that's happening. Right.
yeah, that's
So
too much house for you probably. I mean,
yeah.
possibly you got to really be realistic. Sometimes again, people get before the housing crisis, that was very common. People
Right.
had very little income and were in these
Mm-hmm.
huge homes that they couldn't
Right.
afford because, paperwork was forged and other things happened,
Mm-hmm.
and high interest loans and all kinds of things,
And if
and
somebody
people
has to
got
co-sign for you, I've done all these kind of loans, so this isn't me like judging anybody for how they got their house. But if somebody has a co-sign for your loan, like you're probably not ready for the house,
right.
whether
Wow,
it's for income or for credit, whatever the case might be. Like you might not be ready for the house. You might
you
have to
might
wait a
need to work
year.
on that. Yeah, and it's
You know,
okay because I think sometimes
it's
again we get
okay.
pressured into the status symbol and not the
Mm-hmm.
reality of the responsibility that
Right.
goes with home buying. I'm having a great conversation. If you're just joining us, hit the like button. I'm here with Realtor Marly Walters. You can see her website there, the Marly Group, so you can check her out. She has the latest information, what's going on here, and if you need help with a transaction, she's your gal. So make sure you please follow her at Marly Real Estate on all platforms. So about home buying programs for new
Yeah.
home buyers. Thank you. Great question, Sandy B. Law. Where do we start? Because again, people are really freaked out by, again, I used to be a title agent, so I look at
There
closing
you
costs. I look at hidden costs,
go.
and people
Mm-hmm.
when they saw, their the title worksheet, they're looking at me like, what is this? What is this? What is this? What is this? What is that? So it's
Right.
not just the price of the home, you guys. There's oftentimes times additional costs for the title search, or say you have something that is a open, we would call it in legal terms encumbrance, right? A lien or something else that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't paid, a utility bill or something that is going on with the home. There are oftentimes a lot of additional, I wouldn't call them hidden, but the everyday buyer does not know that these are part of a transaction cost, right? So you get the price for the home, and then you get another what, 5 to 10,000 tacked on, and people are confused and nervous and wondering what they got themselves into. So how much does it really take in addition
Yeah.
to a home, to the cost of the home? And what about these new home buyer programs?
Yeah. So yes, you have more than just your down payment when you're buying a house. And like I said, make sure your agent is working with you and the lender to explain all these costs that you're going to have before you jump in, with both feet. You're going to have your down payment, which can range anything from, zero actually down. If let's say you're getting a VA loan or a veterans loan, typically you're going to get as a first time home buyer, a FHA loan. And that's going to be 3.5% all the way up to, 20% down.
Mm,
So that's the window, right? 0 to 20% really. But standard, we're talking about the average first time home buyer is going to put 3.5% down because they're going to get an FHA loan, or 5% down because they want to get a conventional loan. So those are the two most used: 3.5 or 5% down
so 3.5 or 5% of the total cost of the
of the
purchase price.
total cost of the purchase price. Correct. And then you're going to have what are going to be called closing costs. And you're going to have loan closing costs and title closing costs associated with your transaction. So, like Suzette just said, she was a title agent. You're going to have title costs associated with the loan. That's going to be a lien search, a title search, title insurance, a lot of like really weird like items that you go line by line, and it's still, I'm always like,
Inspection
what's this
cost, all
again?
kinds of
Yeah.
costs. Yes.
Yeah. And then you're gonna have your even costs associated with getting into the home. So the two main things that I tell people that be prepared to lose for whatever reason and walk away from if you don't close on this transaction is your inspection and your appraisal, because those are paid to third parties prior to closing, and so you can't get that money back. An average inspection is going to run you $500 or $600, and an average appraisal these days is going to run you $600 to $700. So that's $1,200 out of your pocket right from the beginning before you even close on the property. Okay. Then you have your 3.5%, down payment on the purchase. Plus, you have another about 3 to 5% in loan closing costs. So loans, costs associated with getting the loan. We had to pay the lender for getting the loan, right? They did some work on their end. And then sometimes for certain loans, you have to pay points ahead of time, which are just like interest rate points, whether you're either, it's kind of getting technical, but you're going to like pay down, the interest rates, pay down the loan to make sure that you can have a lower interest rates. There's little costs like that associated. That always averages about 3 to 5%. So we're talking about, just to be comfortable, like 10% of the total purchase price.
The purchase
of the
price.
cost of the home. Yeah, to get you in a home. I just was gonna calculate the average, the median home price right now in South Florida, Broward County. Okay, I'm gonna
400,000. How much?
How much do you think it is?
Oh God, don't tell me 500.
It's in 2022. It was 500. In 2023, I'm sorry, 2021 it was 500. In 2022, it was 540.
No way.
Yeah, that's the median. The average is a little higher because in we have a really
bigger
big luxury.
Yeah,
we have really big luxury market, which will skew. But the median, which is like the real average price for our market, 540. Okay, so just the down payment alone, 3.5%, you're looking at almost $19,000. Okay, plus another 19 or 20 for your closing costs, plus another $1,200 for your inspection and your appraisal. Okay, so you're in minimum $40,000 for the average home these days. Okay, not that many people are going in with $40,000 cash.
Yeah, it's good to know a number though, to hear that they put it in perspective. Now we're not going to talk people out of doing it because they can get help. Now let's pivot to some of the programs that would help them if they are, again, it varies from state to state. You guys have to check with your local professionals, your real estate professionals. But in general, what do you see that can help with that $40,000 offset if you're looking at a median price home?
Right. And the other thing I forgot to mention, down payment, closing cost on the lender and on the title, and what's called your prepaids, which is you have to pay, if you're putting less than 20% down, you have to pay a year in advance of your taxes and insurance.
Yep.
So that's where that 10% number comes. That's where that $45,000 to $50,000 on a $500,000 house is going to come from. So where can you get help? A couple of different ways. Like from the state, from the city or the county, and then from the seller. Those are kind of like the big programs. So, or from the lender. So depending on which lender you get, okay, or you get approved with. That's why I typically tell people to start with the realtor. And that's not just because I'm a realtor, but it's because we kind of know what programs you're going to work with and which lenders are going to be able to close those loans. So sometimes I come in with buyers that are already pre-approved, and that's fine if they've already gotten a pre-approval with another lender. But sometimes they're going to need $10,000, $20,000 in assistance, and this lender can't close it for them. So I will recommend another person that I know a lender can specifically close it with. So sometimes they're lender specific, like a Bank of America, like you just mentioned, has a specific program for Miami-Dade County residents, right? Or Miami-Dade County homes that are going to have certain income limits and certain price point limits for the homes. So those programs are designed for a certain area because they want to get ownership up in that certain area, right? So typically they're going to either have a low down payment or a no down payment, like the Miami-Dade one has with Bank of America. The bank's probably going to pay for your closing costs. If you choose their title company, they might even pay for your title fees. The closing costs with the loan can sometimes be rolled into the transaction. So at that point, now you're only bringing down your down payment. Right. So that 40, 50,000 just went to 15 or 20.
Now, do you got to pay that money back if you get it from the city or the county or the state?
Almost all of them are going to have some kind of repayment schedule. Okay. Whether it's specific or city or county specific, because what they want to do is they understand people can't afford the like large lump sum up front. Right. But this is they've allocated these funds in order to basically recycle within the city. So they do want their money back somehow,
Right?
right?
It's not free money.
It's
It can help
typically
you at the
not
time
free.
of closing, but it's not
Yeah.
free.
Typically, it's not free. The majority of city and county and state programs are not going to be free in the sense that they're going to be repayable. So that can either be repayable if you refinance, right? So let's say the house gains equity in a few years and you want to refinance, or now that the interest rates are high and you want to refinance to a lower interest rate. Because it's a secondary loan, they're going to want to make sure that when you refinance that they're still in the first position, which means that they have to be paid, right?
Okay.
So typically, if you refinance, you're going to have to pay it, or the new lender is going to have to agree to subordinate, which almost no lenders are going to do that.
Right.
So that's one thing. Or they're going to decrease over time, because what they're trying to do is build up community, right? So they give you an incentive to say, okay, well, if we stay here at least 5 years, on years 6, 7, 8, and 9 and 10, we will reduce it by 20% every single year after that. And after 10 years in that house, it will be forgiven. Okay. Because most of them are going to be basically what's called a zero, like a zero payment mortgage. It's going to be a second loan that they're giving you. Okay. So that's why I'm saying
So
it's not really
again,
free.
it helps with the down payment, but it's not free
Yeah.
money. We got to be aware of those. And
You
I
got to
want
be
you to talk
aware.
about the NACA program. So you have bank-specific programs, you guys,
Right.
for first-time home buyers, again, with the aim of building community. So in specific areas, there are banks that will have certain loans that will allow you to either maybe the interest rate kind of will be a benefit, or you might have a state or city or some other municipality type program, but be aware of the small print. It might not be free. It's what I want people to really understand.
Most are not going to be free, or they're going to have a schedule of forgiveness.
Right.
So,
okay. So the longer you stay in the house, most likely you'll
the
see
more
that you
likely.
owe less.
Exactly.
I'm
But some don't.
Yes.
Yeah, some are like, it doesn't matter when you leave, or you leave next year and leave in 20 years, you have to pay this money back when you sell. So you just pay it out of your equity when you
out of
sell.
equity of the house. Okay. All
Yeah,
right. I
so
think
which
that's
is fine.
more
Like,
reasonable than
you
paying
were
it
gonna pay it
out.
anyway.
Yes.
But at least
You
now
got
it's
the
out up
house
front.
needed, but they want their money back. So
They want
be
their money back.
aware
Because
of the
again,
fine print.
it's a fund that they want to recycle. So that's why they want the money back, right?
So they give it to you, and then they give it to the next home buyer after you pay them back. Then they give it to another home buyer after they pay them back. So it kind of goes around into helping people move into a community. I get
exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So that's one kind.
Yeah.
The other kind is like kind of what you said in terms of an in-house lender. They have a certain program because they want to, stimulate home buying in that area. It's going to be a reduction of interest rate, a payment of closing costs. Some lenders will actually, let's say, pay your closing costs if you use them. A lot of new construction homes do this. So let's say a big builder here is Lennar. They will pay for all of your closing costs because you're using their lender. So you have an incentive now to use their lender. They're making money on the loan. They're like, fine, we'll give you $10,000 up front for it. Wow. So something like that could be forgiven right at closing, right? But that's a very lender specific program. Whereas like a county program, it doesn't matter which lender you use, as long as the lender can get approved for it, any lender can use it. So those programs, a big, there's a couple in Miami-Dade, there's a couple in Broward that always have funds, but typically, like I said, because these funds get recycled, they kind of get used, and you always have to check with your lender to see if they're even available. So you might find it on your county or city website that, oh yeah, you can get up to $30,000 or $40,000 in down payment assistance or closing cost assistance, but the funds might not be available because they get funded every single year on a certain schedule. So you just all have to work
when you buy it, the time of year you buy it, and those type of things.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some limitations to it. Understood.
Yep.
I'm gonna pause you right there, and I want to say good evening to this good brother right here. Grateful for him being in my chat. Listen, y'all better go over to Off Script and go learn something about sports and get your life together when it comes to HBCU, NFL, NBA, you name it. This is my expert, right? This is the expert's expert who is so passionate about what he does. He's a fantastic, I can't say it with enough emphasis the way he would, but Scotty in the building. Off Script says, what's good? I'm grateful that you're here, brother. I've been meaning to DM you on Instagram. I have a couple questions for you, actually. And I hope, not to be too intrusive, but I love your format. Your show format is the bomb. And he keeps it very spicy, very interesting. and he goes toe to toe. His followers are a little bit more rambunctious and very into the sports scene. But I'm grateful that you're here. Thank you for showing love. Glad you were here, and I appreciate you very, very much for coming through. So Marly is here giving us some great advice on how to get our lives together when it comes to real estate, how to think about and what to think about a first time home purchase. You ain't got to
Mhm.
prove nothing to nobody, y'all. It is super important that you calculate, look at the numbers first, not just the pre-approval letter. Now you can walk into the bank and show your pay stubs and whatnot and your credit report and get a pre-approved amount, but you have to really sit down and be honest with yourself for what you will be able to afford on a monthly basis, plus your other bills without stress. And I
Yep.
think people don't really consider that. That was a very common theme leading up to the big housing crash, you guys. And I remember people was looking super, just sad when it
Yeah.
came to what they had gotten themselves into. When that reality hit, it was just like,
Right.
wow, it was almost like I didn't know. So we want to be
Yeah.
very careful when we're thinking about this. Other first time home buyer programs, you deal with NACA or
Yeah, I was
any of
going to
these?
mention. So NACA,
Mhm.
I'm actually a registered NACA agent.
Oh, nice.
Um, I haven't done one probably in about a year or two. NACA is amazing. It's a great program. It can be restrictive in
Hmm.
the sense that if somebody gets approved with a typical lender and the lender will tell them they can afford $500,000 in a house at whatever $4,000 payment, NACA will say they can afford a 350 house with a $2,000 payment. Why is that? Because
Oh.
they calculate affordability based on that net pay of what I just said, a net income, and a typical lender is going to sit off of gross income. And they have, I believe, I have to check again if it's a 35% cap on your what's called debt to income. So where a traditional lender is going to have a 45 or 50% debt to income ratio. So a lot of people end up not going with them because they realize they're not going to get the house they want and they would just rather pay more for it. And so it's a great program if you're actually wanting to live a realistic life and staying under that, like, 25 to 30% of your net take home pay on the mortgage. Um, it's great for affordability. They have probably the lowest foreclosure rate for any program. There is no other program really like it. You don't pay any down payment. You don't have any closing costs. The closing costs are paid by the bank that they have. They're like a nonprofit. They're not a bank. Okay, they partner with the bank to get you approved. But the bank specifically work with their program within their parameters, not with the bank parameters. So you have a lower affordability rate. They have a cap in terms of the price point. I think right now it's about 45. So if you're somebody who's looking in a higher, end range, you're not going to be able to, like, utilize the program. They don't have an income limit, I believe. But like I said, if you're making $300,000 a year, you probably want $1 million house, not a $400,000 house. So somebody who has a higher income and wants a higher priced house isn't going to utilize it. And then also, but it's great, like I said, because there's no down payment. They pay for the closing cost. And there's no what's called PMI. Okay. PMI is something that's on every loan if you put down less than 20% on the house. Okay. So FHA, conventional loans, you're going to have a PMI. Unless for whatever reason, VAs don't have PMI, but PMI is private mortgage insurance. You basically are paying to ensure that you pay for your loan. Okay. So you're paying the
Banks ain't
bank's
trying to
insurance
lose y'all.
policy.
They're gonna make you pay for insurance
Yes,
in case you stop paying. Banks take out
exactly.
insurance on your loan. That's why your credit worthiness and your ability to
Yes.
pay it back is super important to them.
Right.
So they're just not giving anybody like before loans that they can't afford to pay. They're
Right.
taking a risk out on you. The
Yes.
IOU is on them. And again, those are depositors' monies from the bank. The
Hmm.
bank basically holds our money and then lends it out to people. So they
Right.
want to make good investments. So yeah, this is a real thing. This is
Yeah.
definitely
So you're gonna pay, like, typically insurance is something you pay for your own asset, but this is something you're gonna pay for the bank's
for the
asset.
bank.
Yeah.
You can't collect PMI. The bank only can
No,
collect PMI, but
the
they're gonna get
bank.
their money.
Yeah, and it's because you are a riskier investment if you don't have as much equity in the house. If for whatever reason you have to sell the house within 6 months,
Yeah.
if you're putting 3% down, you don't have enough equity to sell. So they want to make sure that they insure their investment. But with NACA, there's no PMI because, of course, they're
Yeah.
making sure that you're really, really qualified for the
And you
house.
can
There's
afford
almost no
it.
reason
So
for
they're
you to
not gonna
afford
worry
it.
about you not paying it. No, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So and then they have the lowest interest rate basically in the country. Um, because of the way they do their loans. So typically it's going to be anywhere from 1 to 2 points lower than any other bank in the country without having to pay any discount points. And let's say you are the buyer that actually does have $20,000 in the bank, but you're actually qualified for a NACA loan. You're able to pay down the interest rate by points. You can get a 1% interest rate by just buying it down with NACA. So it's a great program, but it's you might feel like it's really restrictive because they want to make sure the people they put in the programs are staying within that affordability window. That could be restrictive for you.
It's good because it's going to make sure you can afford what you think you can afford by putting you way under a possibility in terms of the threshold of what they allow. So some people don't like NACA because they want to buy what they want to buy. But if you're in NACA, the likelihood of you not being able to pay your mortgage or default is what they call it on your loan. Is very low. So it's really good to know about these programs. Guys, ask about these programs. Now, I want to get into this question. Lil Ernest had a statement earlier, and he is asking, is a house an asset or liability? Before you answer that, are there any free down payment assistance programs at all that you are aware of?
So most of the county programs I work with, they're only going to be free, like I said, is if you meet that time threshold, and then they become forgiven. And that's
like living in a house for a certain amount of time.
Correct.
So 10 years, and then you won't have to pay it back, or you pay it back at sale. Okay, cool.
Yes.
But nothing else is out there that's free.
The only one that I personally work with that is, let's say, what's called a free, right, would be NACA, because they don't require it. Right. So the bank's gonna pay for your closing costs, and they don't require down payment. And they pay for your appraisal. Like it's in that sense, it's the best program. Okay, you're gonna pay for, I think you pay for your inspection. So I mean, you might be out of pocket for $1,000.
That's it to buy a house.
Yeah. The other ones that are free is if you go through a new construction lender, and they're gonna typically pay for your closing cost. That's the incentive. So those are free in that sense. Yeah. The one I personally work with is one lender. I can write the name of it down.
No problem. Yeah,
it's lender. It's for, if you've ever heard of the Hero Homebuyer Program. Yeah. That it's a big rollout the last year. It's kind of that program in the sense that it's for certain industries, what we call like heroes. So you're going to be
teachers, first
responders. Their actual list is actually really extensive. So it could be somebody in who works in a utility company. It could be somebody who works in a delivery company like a FedEx or an Amazon. It could be, you don't even have to be a teacher. You can just work in any part of the schooling system, like administrator, be a janitor. Like, so it's really extensive in that sense. I had somebody who works for some kind of logistics company, and somehow they were able to, logistics or staffing company, and they were able to also get it approved. They will pay for your closing costs outright, up to $30,000. So you're not going to max that out unless you're like buying a $2 million home.
That's federal fund called the Hero Fund.
So it's two things. One's called the Hero Homebuyer Program. That's a county state program. Okay. That one it's a zero payment mortgage. You do have to pay all of it back. Okay. But they pay up to 5% of the loan, up to $25,000. Okay. That's one. That's repayable. The other one, it's called a Hero Homebuyer Credit Program. That's a bank-specific program that I work with. They pay for all of your closing costs up to $30,000. It's paid at closing because it's a grant that's given through the bank. So as long as you qualify for the loan and you qualify as one of the industries, you get that paid off right away. So let's say for a standard $500,000 house, that could probably be $1,000 in closing costs that they pretty much pay for at closing for you. Zero repayment. As long as you qualify, there's no income restriction, which the other Hero program does have an income restriction, and there's no housing price limit either. So you could buy $1 million house and have $30,000 of your closing costs paid with no income restriction, as long as you meet one of those industries.
Yes. Yeah. Ask about
that one is specifically
aware. Not everyone qualifies for these. Obviously, you have to get the details behind it, but at least ask: is there especially if you're in any of those first responder or hero designated professions? I don't think lawyers get any of that. But
if you I'm a realtor and I don't get it either, so I usually don't qualify.
That's not me. I'm not in no heroes. But if you do know about it, at least you can ask about it and see if you can qualify. Yes.
This is a caveat for that program. If you ever were a teacher, ever were a first responder, ever in your life, you qualify. So it's not even like an active, you don't even have to actively be that profession. If your spouse or anybody that's going to co-sign on the loan is going to be for you is on it, you can also qualify.
Ever have already
ever have
Doesn't have
in
to be
history.
current.
Doesn't have to be current.
Hey, I
And
might be able to get in
third,
there.
yeah, and third, and like I say, they add industries all the time. So even if you think you're like not on it, just talk to the person. He'll see if he can qualify you for it. And third, if the person that you're buying the house from qualifies, even though they're not getting the loan, you can still use it.
What?
I know. So it's actually a
Guys,
lot
this is
more
why you need a
expensive.
knowledgeable realtor. Y'all see?
Yeah.
You need to have people who are real professionals, not people who are lazy and schlepping around just pretending to help their client. You want people
Well,
who know the
I
programs.
know the
Yeah.
issue is the thing is a lot of people that even though they make a high income, like sometimes they don't have a lot of savings. Just sometimes you have a lot of money, you just don't save it, or you don't,
Right.
it's tied up in assets or in other investments. And asking to pay another $20,000, if I can save you $20,000,
Yes.
and it's going to be the same interest rate and same loan program, like take the money,
Exactly.
for free.
No, but that's why we rely on real professionals in the real estate industry. There are a lot of people out here flossing and acting as if they know what they're doing and they don't. So answer this question for me.
Yeah.
Is a house an asset or a liability? What would you say?
It depends. Okay. If one, just in theoretical thoughts, I should say, if the house, even if you were paying on it, if the house has you and you don't have the house, it's going to be a liability. If you don't feel like the house is a blessing because you're stressed about paying every single month, it's going to be a liability in one way or another. Okay. But if we're talking about just financially, is a house a liability or an asset? Just basic terms, an asset has income coming in and a liability has income coming out. So if your primary house, if you still have a mortgage on it, you don't really own it. The bank owns it. Okay. You're just loaning it from them until you pay it off. So it's going to be a liability, just in terms of just accounting terms. Okay. If you have paid off your house and you have income, let's say as an investment coming in on it, I think that's an asset. Okay. If you have cash flow from the property. I kind of think your personal house, and there's people who have different theories about this or fall on different sides of this. If you have a personal house, it's your owner occupied house. Even if you have no mortgage, you still have other expenses associated with the house that aren't bringing in income. So it's going to be on the liability side, unless you can write off a lot of things on the house on your taxes. So in that sense, in terms of a strict accounting sense, it's the liability if it's your personal residence, right? You're always going to have to pay taxes on the house. So even then,
maintenance never stops.
Yeah, maintenance never stops. Taxes never stop, right? Try not paying your taxes. See if you
own a house,
your house.
See what breaks. See all of a sudden new roof, new refrigerator, new washing machine. Houses are what drive the American economy, really, because people always got to spend money.
But in that sense, a rent is liability too, because you have to make a payment every single month. Yes. So in that sense, it has asset potential. In that sense, you can always pay for it. I mean, you can always sell it and get the cash for the house. Okay.
And it can appreciate. So that's a little different from rent. Yeah.
Exactly. It appreciates. You gain the equity, not the landlord. Okay. But really houses are really only true assets if it's an investment property that's bringing in income.
Awesome. All right, let's get to a few more questions, y'all. This is your time. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat. Go ahead.
Another thing, in terms of down payment or closing cost assistance, okay? The other thing that's also overlooked, which is not really a program, okay? But what you can do is get seller's contribution. A seller's contribution is basically a credit given to you by the seller at closing. So it's going to depend the range anywhere from, let's say, 3 to 6% about how much they can give you. Actually, 3 to 9% about how much they can give you, depending on what kind of loan you have. But if a owner, let's say the house is worth $500,000 and you have it under contract for $500,000, and they agree to drop the price from $500,000 to $485,000, okay? The payment between $500,000 and $485,000 is probably about $100, $150 a month.
Ooh.
Okay, it's really not that much. Yeah. But if you keep that $500,000 purchase price and they credit you 3%, which is $15,000 at closing, now you have reduced your amount you have to bring to closing. So I tell clients, if you can afford, like, two things. If your goal is just to pay off this house as fast as possible and you have the money for the down payment and closing costs, go ahead and take the price reduction. But if you're really tight on the funds to close and you don't have the full down payment, or if at the end of the transaction you're gonna have like $1,000 left in your bank, take the credit.
Right.
So it really depends on
So
a
yeah,
person's financial
each
situation.
person's situation is different.
Yeah,
It's great that you're pointing this out. There are ways, uh, the word may not be proper, but to finagle it so that you understand
right,
your every, how much you have in cash, how much you have in savings,
right,
what you need right now to pay off, what your
right,
debt to income ratio is, all these things.
right,
There are so many parts that can be adjusted to make sure you, the buyer or the seller, get the best outcome. But we're talking about
right.
from a buyer's perspective here. So it's easy and it's not. So it's always good to get someone like Marly, who is well informed, clearly knows what she's talking about, involved in the transaction, so that
That's
you.
gonna know, yeah, how to structure the deal for you in
Yeah,
your
exactly. So
scenario,
people are
right?
very wary of who they bring in. Thank you. That's why we're here. Elder O says this live has been so informative. Thank you, Suzette and Marly. Yes, that's what we're here for. Sandy B asked, "Hey, I was a teacher. What's the name of the program again?" So one quickly, what was that?
It's called Hero Homebuyer Credit. I'll have you put. I'll send it to you so you can link it and the
Okay, cool.
information because it's only with a very specific lender. Like this is one of those lender specific programs.
Okay,
Some lenders have it's called something else and they
right,
do it for everybody.
right.
But this is a very specific program I work with one lender. So
Okay,
I'll link
cool.
it to you.
It's good to know. And Hero Home Buyer, we see this. Thank you, TTOO. Glad you are here. Says law enforcement get 40 to 50% off HUD houses in many states. Okay, law enforcement, look into it.
If
Um,
a HUD house is
mhm.
basically like an auction foreclosure from
Mm,
from a federal foreclosure, basically, if it's a HUD
mhm,
property.
mhm.
There's some houses that they have a special program on for first responders, where like let's say police or firefighters, and where for let's say a week before they release it to the full market, they'll release it to just first responders.
No
And if
way.
you qualify for the house and you bid on it and you win basically the lottery bid on it, you pay 50% of the purchase price.
What?
So
Is
it's
that the
great.
rule in Florida?
Yeah, it's a rule in Florida.
Woo!
Um,
I never heard
it's
of that.
it's great. They barely ever come up. So if you're waiting for it, like
Okay,
don't
so
wait.
nobody really.
It's like a 2 times a year thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, goodness.
But I mean, I've had one client that actually, and you have to win the bid. It's not even like they just
Yeah, it
come up
doesn't
and bet it.
automatically kick in. Right, right. You have
I've
to
had
win.
one in 8 years that have actually like qualified and won it and gone through and paid for it. So it's
Okay,
great
so
if you can
one
win the
out of
bid.
8 years, 365 days. We love it. But it's
Yeah,
good to know. You never know.
good to know.
Hermes Addict, how are you, sis? Glad you're here. She says, I was once a teacher and I'm looking for a South Florida home. Listen, sis, call Marly, figure out, make an appointment, and have her help you because I trust that she would point you in the right direction. And I hear you, especially if this extends to when you used to be a teacher or when you used do other things. I'm that qualify. I'm like, what? I didn't know it was that, it could go back in time to when you held these jobs. So definitely ask about it, especially if you're in the process, guys. We have about 10 minutes or so. So if you have any final questions, please go ahead and ask Miss Marly Walters. We want you guys informed. We want people making good decisions. You can find her on all social. She's on TikTok, y'all, at Marly Walters. You can find her at Marly Real Estate on Insta. And there's so many parts of this. Marly Home here. Okay, she done sent me the website. Let me put it in the chat because y'all who are watching live. Oh my goodness, I see a super chat. Thank you, out here trucking. Hold on now. Here is Marly's suggested website for the Marly Hero Home Buyer Credit.com. She done put a whole website together, y'all, to make sure you have the information. But before I put that up, I gotta say thank you to one of my fantastic supporters here on the Suzette Speak Show on the Super Chat, sponsoring today's stream. None other than out here trucking beep beep. Okay, boo boo boo. Jeremy in the building saying, just showing some support. Thank you, Suzette. You're a breath of fresh air on these YouTube, brother. Right here, brother, right here on these YouTube streets. Peace and love. It refreshes me that you are refreshed, my brother, because there's oftentimes, all, the chit chatter that can get into, kind of like a low vibration. So we do, some fun stuff here too, but shows like this, y'all, you're welcome. This type of information, people don't sit down usually and just give it to you so that you at least understand some of what's going on in a home buying transaction. So I want to make sure we touch on also investment property. Don't let me forget, but just having people like Jeremy who see the vision and support the vision. I can't thank you enough, brother. I always appreciate you. And thank you for coming up on that last show. I got to see what you look like. But he's usually out here trucking. So he listens or he listens to Team Replay. But it's much love to you, sir. And I'm grateful that you're enjoying the content. Big up out here trucking every time, always supporting the Suzette Speak show and what we got going on over here. Thank you so very much for your generosity. So yes, make sure, as I was saying, you follow her TikTok, Insta, check her out. Check her out for her services, of course, and make sure you can find her on Linktree. And I put her website right up front, the Marly Group. So do you do new construction, Marly? All right, Damon, great question. Do you do new construction homes? If so, how do you represent that? The 2 houses I have owned were new construction. Okay.
Yeah,
What is that like?
Yeah, I tell clients this is a big uh misunderstanding, I think, in the industry. You should absolutely have a buyer's representative in the transaction, even if you're going new construction. New construction, the agents that are there, they're there to, like I said earlier about fiduciary responsibility, they're there to protect the builder, not you. So of course they're not going to do anything illegal, but they're there to represent the builder, not you. So you want a buyer's representative in the transaction. It's free in the sense of that the builder is going to pay them directly, pay the agent directly, not you. Or it gets paid through the transaction. It's not like an additional fee. So always go in with a buyer's representative first or an agent first. If you go to the property prior to going there with your agent, you can't use them.
That almost happened to me with my homegirl.
Yeah. So
she was like, did you go over there? Don't go over there without me.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, we're going to give you, a credit or something if you use agent versus theirs. Sometimes that's not true. And if it is true, we'll work it out so that you can get some kind of credit regardless. I always tell my clients it's worth it anyway, for whatever reason. If they don't, that you have that person looking over the contract for you, and representing you and fighting for you in the deal. Because a lot of times they're just like, oh, take it or leave it. And that's just not true. There's a lot of things that are negotiated in new construction properties that a lot of people haven't, because they just weren't aware that you could use a buyer's agent.
And they take advantage of your ignorance. Yeah.
So one thing though, you have to go with your agent, or you have to have your agent register you prior going to the property. So if you at all are thinking about new construction, just let your agent know. They can pre-register you on a few different communities, and then you can go with them. So that's one. And then two, something about foreclosure versus a new house. There's nothing different about a foreclosed home versus a new home in terms of the actual condition of the property, the actual property. The difference is a foreclosure means that it's bank owned. So this is something that a homeowner used to own. They couldn't make the payments. The bank has taken it back, and they're now reselling it as the bank. So this is a bank-owned property. And so typically, because of how long it takes a foreclosure takes, it could have been vacant for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So the condition might not be as good. Exactly. But I've had, lenders take it back and flip it in 6 months. And sometimes they flip the property themselves and they put paint and make it in good condition. Sometimes in really bad condition, it can only be cash, but sometimes they're financeable. So the only difference is it's not a personal person owning in the house. The bank owns it.
Okay. And do you find that banks are harder in terms of driving for what they want in a negotiation, or are they just as, accessible with their representatives, et cetera?
Because typically you're going to go through like a bigger bank. They have basically a call center. It's a longer process to get to somebody.
The real estate arm, yes.
Yeah, of the team, until you're actually like under contract, and even then it's a little more difficult. But that's your agent's supposed to navigate that. Yeah. So as long as you can actually get approved for the house, that's possible. It's just there aren't as many as foreclosure these days.
You call the 800 number, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people ask, and let's say you go on Zillow, you'll see house for sale, pre-foreclosure. Pre-foreclosure doesn't mean anything for you as a buyer. Don't get those. Don't send those to your agents. They're not for sale. That just means that the owner of that property has missed one payment or two payments. That's all that means. They're not for sale. They're not selling right now.
And they have the opportunity to catch up and pay. So
exactly. So
yeah, a lot of things that come across different websites that, if you don't start Googling house for sale, all of a sudden every ad, every email, now people find you and trying to send you all kind of bogus information. So you got to be very careful. And again, you have to weed it out. And oftentimes you need help. I love it. Hermes Addict says, hey, gorgeous ladies, I'm going to hit her up. Let's go. This is what we do. We pair people up with wonderful information with individuals and professionals that can help them. So grateful to hear that. They say Marly knows her business. Hey, let's go, Miss AKA Lady. How are you? Glad you could drop by. Hello, hello. Yes, TTO mentioned sellers' contribution is some creative financing. Listen, any way you need to
It's
get it
not.
done. Anyway.
It's one of the biggest ways I've built my business. A lot of people don't fight for it,
Mm,
especially when you're in a buyer's market. If you're in a seller's market, it's almost impossible to get it. People are paying over the purchase price. Seller's not going to want to give you credit for anything. They're not going to fix anything. That was the last 2 years. The more recent markets or prior to 2019, I got it all the time. Even
mm.
if it's like $3,000, it's cash in your pocket you don't have to pay
It's
for.
more money than you had. Exactly.
Yeah. So even if you ask
Exactly.
for it and they say no, like it's better to ask than them say no.
All right. That's fantastic. Shout out to DLC. I see you hit the like button. Final questions, y'all. Thank you so much, Marly. Make sure again you're following her. Make sure you go. And we also got a new follower for you. She says, Elza said, like, save, and following. Marly, you have your own YouTube channel, right?
I do. A lot of it is about the Florida, living here in South Florida and the Florida market. Different neighborhood tours about relocating, about financing and buying a home and selling a home here in South Florida. So it's very kind of market specific. So if you live here and you're looking for a house to buy here, it's great information. But if you ever want to reach me directly, it has all that information on there as well. Mm-hmm. And I know you
Awesome.
mentioned
Damon says, go ahead.
no, I know you mentioned investment. I would
Yes.
say the only thing I would say for first time home buyers in terms of investment in purchasing investment property, be careful. At the end of the day, there's a lot of things that go into, like people are flipping houses and things like that. A lot of unknown costs and pop-up costs happen when you're trying to flip and buy investment properties as a first-time home buyer. The only thing I could possibly recommend, depending on your situation, is with FHA, you're able to buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex with the
Mm,
same loan. So if you're, let's say, this is only for certain buyers. Let's say you are a, single professional and owning a big house with a yard isn't that important to you or whatever that is, and you find a duplex, you can live on one side and rent out the, and so now you have a property while you're living there. That you just have to decide if you want to be a landlord, right?
right.
Immediately. But
Exactly.
that being said, like you can, once you want to move up in house in 2, 3, 4 years, now you have an investment property. And now
Mhm.
you can just use that as an investment, move out, put 2 renters in there, and then purchase another house. So it's an easy way to like start investing without putting,
Yeah.
20% down or having cash, and get a multifamily property. Start with a fourplex and then buy a triplex and then buy a duplex and then buy your dream home, versus starting with your dream home and now you have to put 20% down to get any kind of investment income property after that.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
that's
it's
good
yeah,
advice. Sound advice. Think about it, guys. It might not be right for you, but
right.
something that you can invest in or investigate more. Damon says, I had a realtor with both my new construction home. Makes sense
Mm-hmm.
because people think they're gonna walk in and those people not gonna try to get the best of you. This is Miami, bro. They will rip you off if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Listen, refinancing has come up. Little Ernest know a little bit about properties. I see. Says last question. No, it's okay, brother. If you ask more, says last question. What are the advantages of refinancing your home? Now, right now, interest rates are kind of high. So tell us what interest rates do to your loan, first of all.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead. We'll finish this.
Yeah. I mean, you're really only gonna find refinance really for two reasons. One, to drop your interest rate, but most people who have a loan or haven't gotten a loan the last year have had the historically low interest rates. You're not going to refinance out of that. So if you have a 3% interest rate, you're not going to refinance with 6%, right? It doesn't make any sense. So it's one, to drop your interest rate so that yes, you can get a lower payment. And sometimes we'll do what's called cash out refinances. And so let's say your house, well, when you purchased it, the loan is $400,000, but now your house is worth $600,000. You
Mhm.
can refinance that $400,000 loan to a $500,000 loan. You're going to get a little slightly higher repayment, but you can pull that cash, the difference out. So now you can take out 70, 80, $90,000 to remodel or do whatever you want with that money, honestly. So it's either to take cash out or to drop your interest rate so you can drop your payment. And that's usually the only reason it should be done, because there are costs associated with it. You're getting a new loan, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes you can roll it into the loan, but typically you're not there's a cost associated with that. So Those are the only two reasons. Right now, there aren't many
Interest rates are going
refinancing.
up and up.
Yeah, they're going up.
Probably not the
This,
best time.
yeah. Well, that being said, because of the, what happened to the Silicon Valley Bank and the whole banking system,
Yes, it spooked
um,
the
it
market.
spooked the market for a week. The only good thing about that was that interest rates and bond rates have an inverse relationship, and so because the bond rates with them, that means the interest rates have been affected and they've also kind of dropped. So actually now, probably the next week or two,
We
you're
got a
saving a
window, y'all.
point.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
you have a window which dropped, which they weren't expecting to. They've been expected to go up and up and up. So we're probably around 6.5% now. You could probably get something under 6 in the next week or two, which is probably the lowest it's going to be for the next year at least.
Wow, it's good and it's bad. This is how we know the markets are all related, right? You can't just count yourself out because you never know when things happen and switch up the market fully. As AKA Lady says, every time my contract is accepted, I immediately start looking for things to ask for. The cost of moving is a lot. Good point, sis. So even if you cover 500 in improvements, that's something I don't have to pay. Yeah. So sometimes we think, is it really worth, kind of asking for things? Listen, is money in your pocket? The answer is yes. All they can say is no. Even from the title agent, even though I didn't like giving concessions every now and then, I did. And people respect that, or at least come back with more business, and I see them a few months later, et cetera, between them and the realtor. So it is something that is worth asking for. Damon also said, I refinanced right before COVID. It dropped my rate and my payment. Y'all, we're out of time. I've enjoyed this. Y'all check her out, right? First and foremost, I want to thank Miss Marly Walters for blessing us with this amount of knowledge. You can't get this anywhere else. No, it's not. Or maybe on her channel. But other than on Marly's actual YouTube channel, there's not a lot of places on the YouTube space, especially within our sphere, that are trying to help people elevate, educating them and entertaining them at the same time. That's what we're trying to do over here. So be sure to check her out, y'all. You see the website there. Thank you, RM. Marly home buying. That's how I know it's time to go. I was like, tongue tied. Now it's time to go. So I hosted a whole nother show today. Shout out to everybody who came over and watched me. I hosted in my brother's place. Faraji Muhammad has a block on Roland Martin's YouTube channel from 3 to 5, and I guest hosted in his chair today. It was stressful, y'all, and I'll be doing it again tomorrow. I had two big plans today. A women's luncheon that I heard in Miramar was really good. I don't know if you went, but there was a women's luncheon with Commissioner Yvette Colburn. They said was so fire. Constance Jones, a friend of mine, emceed it, and man, I was like, I missed it, but I did a phenomenal job. I'm just gonna say it. Hosting on the Roland Martin.
Yourself in the back. Okay.
Yes, we just talked about self-confidence and self-esteem yesterday. Hello, I had to tell myself and program my brain. This is gonna be amazing. I'm gonna handle it. And I'm going to do my thing. And it was so much fun. Yes, stress, but so much fun. And thank you to everybody who was over there watching me. It'll be from 3 to 5 again tomorrow. I'm holding it down his chair. He'll be back on Monday. I'm usually just contributing, but when you're hosting, it's like, all right, so let's do this. So Saturday, we also have a show. I'm finally going to talk about this whole wifey material thing with Sierra. I was kind of, I don't know, people been talking about the dress and the dress and the dress and the dress. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna let my speakers, my audience kind of get involved. But it's a real conversation because I think the standard of what some women think is appropriate and some men think is appropriate is either changing, or maybe it's not changing. Maybe it's because of what she does for a living. Nonetheless, we're going to break it all the way down because I think it's heavy. It's heavy. So Saturday, 12 noon, I'm back. Saturday, 12 noon. I won't see y'all tomorrow, but Saturday, come through. We're going to be talking about Miss Sierra and her goodies. Okay. So thank you. Yes, L.O. I'm going to try to celebrate as much as I can. Congratulations. Thank you, sis. It's a big deal. Sitting in front of, I think we got 2,000 views in less than 3 hours. Like that, I'm not used to. So a little bit of pressure, but pressure creates diamonds. So I'm grateful again to have your support. Appreciate that. Great job today. Okay, thanks. If Damon said it was yes, let's go. Big things popping for sure. Tomorrow from 3 to 5. 3 to 5 on the Roland. I didn't even, in the midst of things, I didn't even get to share the link on my community page. Usually I'll say, hey, y'all, come over, watch, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, thank you, RM. So Roland Martin, just look up Roland Martin. And on here, you can see today's show. I'm going to post a link with today's show. Y'all can give me a feedback. And again, to my brother, from Out Here Trucking, Jeremy. He also has a channel, y'all. Check out Here Trucking, his channel on the trucking business. Please, please, please check him out and sub. Yes, sub today, they saying they subbing. We're getting everybody up to hopefully their 1,000 on YouTube is the magic number for all that. And make sure you check out my girl RM. She also, like I said, has a channel celebrating vintage femininity. And yeah, so check out Marly. There she is.
Yes.
Facebook, IG, Twitter, at Marly Real Estate. And again, her website is right there for you, the Marly Group. Marly, it's always a pleasure. And thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. If you don't, if you don't, even if you don't qualify for the Hero Home Buyer programs, just reach out to me if you're looking to buy or sell. There's other programs that I might have that we didn't mention today. So, and always just remember,
like, don't get hung up on one program, y'all.
Don't get hung up. Yeah.
No, I gotta again just acknowledge Out Here Trucking and thank him again sincerely for all his support. Always support me here. Y'all, we got to go. I told her it's a long day, but we gonna go and still do the show nice and late. See y'all Saturday. Have a great night. And thank you again, Marly, for all your fabulous information and your contributions tonight. All right, girl. If I can be of service, you just let me know, okay?
Okay.
All right, you take care. Thank you for watching, everybody.
Bye.
See you soon.